Hey guys, what's up? It's been a hot minute since I did a review of a more recent film. So, I managed to catch a few over the past couple of weeks, and so I figure I'd bring some attention to a couple of these movies that I haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet. So let's get started by discussing one of the more recent animated affairs to appear on Netflix, Wendell and Wild. This has been one of the main projects from Netflix that I have been quite interested in. This is the newest film from Henry Selick. You know, the guy who did Coraline, James and the Giant Peach, and Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Though, with that lineup alone, you bet I'm pretty interested in something like this. In fact, I actually heard about this project all the way back in 2018 when I went to CTN, where Selick showcased a sneak peek of this during his panel. It was really neat to see, but there wasn't much of it shown, which is understandable because, hey man, stop motion animation takes time. Either way, I'm glad this project he did with Jordan Peele is finally seeing the light of day, and it was worth it because this is a really cool movie. The film centers around a young orphan girl named Kat, who's this rebellious young teenager going to this Catholic school. In the mix of all of this, these two demons known as Wendell and Wild spend their days helping their father, who is the lord of the underworld, to create this amusement park for lost souls. Though, while they're going through all of this, they find out that Kat is able to summon them at a certain point, and the two demons make a deal with the young girl to bring back a loved one if they can go into the human world itself, and thus a lot of mischief and mayhem ensues. All leading to a pretty fun movie that's very creative and neat as far as animated films go, starting with the look. And unsurprisingly from Henry Selick, this is a visual spectacle. One thing I did notice in comparison to Coraline, I feel the stop motion in here isn't quite as smooth as that film was. Though when I say this, I don't mean this as an insult to Wendell's and Wild's animation, especially since I've heard some criticism of the kind of really smooth stop motion that Coraline offers. Some say that the stop motion films from Laika are so good that it becomes too indistinguishable from CGI, which for some that's not as appealing. Some people adore the imperfections of stop motion, so to see it be this smooth gives it more of a perfectionist vibe. I myself don't take too much issue with the super smooth stop motion because I feel that's just a testament to how good the stop motion is if it looks so much like CG. However, I do understand the charm of seeing the imperfections on a stop motion film, whether it be finger marks or more choppy motions. It does create for a distinct style, as I feel the more choppiness of the animation is more intentional, and if anything, I say Wendell and Wild is arguably a more stylistic film than Coraline was. The film managed to be so cool with its use of dark colors, particularly with some really good use of greens and purples. So it is a visual spectacle that's worth watching on that level. Also wanted to add, this film has a pretty good soundtrack too. More licensed music compared to anything Selick has done in the past, but it works and fits the film very well. I knew we were in for a good time when the film opens with Ghost Town, which is fitting considering I associate that song with another major Halloween classic. Aesthetic wise, this movie is pretty fantastic, but I think the characters and story aren't anything to shrug off either. Not quite the strongest of Selick's career, as this does try to juggle a lot of different plots and story points to the point where it can feel a little much. You have all these characters and plot points from dealing with Kat, Wendell and Wild, and even the eventual subplot regarding one of Kat's friends, and it can be a little much to juggle. Though that's not to say I didn't like where the story was ultimately going. In fact, one of the most shocking yet bold things this film does is that it actually has a really insightful social commentary on private prisons. I'm actually being serious about this. I won't reveal how exactly, but the film does a good job examining the idea that, yeah, private prisons are kind of awful and we shouldn't do that. So I give them props to them for actually addressing this in a kids movie. Although that might be a poor use of words, cause this isn't really a kids movie, unlike other films of this caliber. It does have a PG-13 rating, and it utilizes it quite well, with a lot more violence, spooky images, and even some mild swearing. Yet it does dive on some themes that, whether you're a kid or not, are commendable to have. It's another film that discusses on handling loss, and while it might not be the absolute best film to talk about this, the way it does go about it does give it a positive message that is always welcome in a film like this. I guess the last thing to note is that I thought the cast was pretty good. I enjoy Kat's rebelliousness, and Wendell and Wild are actually really fun characters that are perfectly played by Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key. In fact, the voice acting in general is quite good on all fronts, with this film doing a really good job of utilizing its cast. Hell, it's another pretty fun movie this year to feature James Hong, who I'm glad has been getting quite a lot of attention this year between all the great things that have been coming to him. So overall, I feel Wendell and Wild is a pretty fun time. Not my favorite of Selick's work, but one I recommend quite a bit on the basis of these kind of creepy stop-motion animated films are always a delight to watch, especially during the October season. I mean, sure, Halloween may be over now, but that doesn't mean I don't think this movie is worth your time, because it really is. Spooky season or not, a stop-motion animated film from one of the most iconic legends of the medium will always deserve your time, as you'll for sure get some sort of creativity on screen to enjoy. So take that for what it's worth. And I'm going to give Wendell and Wild an 8 out of 10. The other major film I saw recently was the new DC film, Black Adam. Well, with it being the next big DC movie, I felt obligated to check this out for curiosity's sake. However, I can't say I was really that hyped for Black Adam. I didn't think it looked awful, but it did look fairly standard. Like another major superhero movie, just this time with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But I'm willing to give it a shot. I mean, after all, DC still has the best comic book movie of the year with the Batman for me. So maybe we'll see some neat stuff for Black Adam. And, well, yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I expected. By no means a bad movie, but it's still your typical run-of-the-mill superhero movie that can be fun at parts, but nothing truly remarkable as a whole. It's a DC project that focuses on the anti-hero Black Adam, who, I'll admit, I'm not quite as familiar with compared to other DC heroes, so this is my main introduction of the character. And for what it's worth, it does have an alright setup, and does lead to a film that mostly doesn't achieve that much more than just being an entertaining blockbuster experience. Kinda like Aquaman, if I'm being honest. The film focuses on the origins of Black Adam as he eventually has to team up with the Justice Alliance to become a potentially better superhero, despite this character having a gray complex where he sees himself more as a god than a hero, thus leading to one of the more interesting aspects of the film. Black Adam has to deal with the conflict of how he handles defeating his villains here, as the Justice Alliance has this no-killing code, as most DC heroes tend to have. It does create for an interesting dynamic to see these morally right heroes fight against Black Adam's philosophy, and this whole thing even ties into the idea of how sometimes it seems needless for an outside force to intervene in a conflict that's not necessarily one for them to fight. It is a little interesting from a story perspective, despite the film mostly focusing it on being a big action film, which, for as CGI heavy and standard as it is, some of the action is admittedly kind of fun. The highlight is a sequence involving Black Adam fighting some bad guys to the song Painted Black by the Rolling Stones. While it is a cliche scene of a really fast character having an action scene where everything slows down around him set to a licensed song, it's still an entertaining sequence. One other thing to note about this film is that unlike superhero movies nowadays where they bring in a team of superheroes just for like one sequence, the Justice Alliance are a consistent part throughout the whole thing. They contribute to the plot way more, and while they are still ultimately there for setup for future movies, they at least have more to contribute in this film compared to other comic book movies of this nature. Plus, the Justice Alliance characters themselves, I thought were alright, with Pierce Brosnan in particular being the actual highlight of the movie as Dr. Fate. Yeah, this dude is essentially DC's version of Doctor Strange, but I thought the character still looked cool. He had some really neat powers from a visual perspective, and Pierce Brosnan played the role very well with a lot of sophistication. That's where my main praises of Black Adam ends, as the rest of the movie serves as pretty standard. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's not bad, and one thing this movie does do that I like is that he does play a more aggressive anti-hero that's different from his usual nice guy hero stick. But even then, I don't think his performance stands out that much compared to what he usually does. He has charisma, and he's not bad, but it's still sort of you get what you get with The Rock, and that's mostly how I feel about this. And yes, this is also CGI heavy as hell, and it can be a little overkill, especially towards the third act, which is easily the weakest link of the movie for me. It's another big spectacle of CGI that gets a bit much. Like, if you haven't liked a lot of big CGI overkill in these kind of movies before, this will definitely not win you over. It's even made worse by adding in a last-minute villain that really was honestly pretty forgettable, despite some cool kills here and there regarding this character. It's not so much that the CGI is bad, although this shot will never not make me chuckle, but it is overkill. I wish I had a little bit more to say about Black Adam, but in reality, I mostly enjoyed myself for the 2 hours this film provided, as its ultimate goal is to be a dumb action superhero film. And it does kind of work, admittedly. The only thing I could mention about this movie is the post-credits cameo, which I won't reveal who it is, but I'll say it was admittedly pretty neat to see this character appear, and this time we actually got to see the actor's face for a change. Other than that, I say Black Adam was mostly just fine. It didn't wow me, nor did it anger me. It was mostly just a movie. As a big of a DC fan I am, I didn't fall in love with this. But I did find the things I usually like about DC movies still around here to make it where I was at least entertained for the time being. Though, I won't be dying on a hill for you to go see this movie, so unless if you're someone who's obligated to DC like me, I say just stick with the Batman and you'll be fine. And I'm gonna give Black Adam a 6 out of 10. So yeah, those were my brief thoughts on both of those movies. What did you think of Wendell and Wild or Black Adam if you happen to see any of those? Give me your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you guys again next time. Later.